好啦，歡迎翻到呢一個寰雨膠事 chat 啦。咁今集咧，有邊個喺度啊？
係我啊嘛，雲總啊，又係啊。
係啦，咁即係雲總出現嘅時間咧，就大家都知道咧，今日又要糟質大家聽英文啦。
係啦，冇錯啦。
咁冇辦法，挪威我又唔識有咩挪威港女定港男啦，咁唯有揾個挪威男咯。
係。
咁係啦，咁spoiler alert挪威啲口音可能比較難聽啲嘅，我就完全聽得明嘅嚇。可能我真係做10年 NGO，咩印度口音都冇事嘅嚇，澳洲口音係對於我嚟講係 culture shock 嚟嘅，係啊。咁所以咧就大家要專心聽啦啊！如果你真係想聽嘅話，
好咁去片啦嚇，好。
Welcome back to this program again, and today we are talking about a place called Norway, and again it's very far away from Hong Kong, and we are having Jon Harald today to talking about how's going on in Norway. Say hello to each other.
Hello.
Hello. And yeah, so let me start a little bit about you to correct me if I got it wrong, because nobody really knows how, because in Hong Kong usually people knows about UK, US, and sometimes they will, I don't know why Germany now. So Norway, it seems a bit far away from us, and people are not really cares about the case or because the coronavirus is everywhere. So it's not sure how is that, because Norway is fairly late to have the first case, because it's according to my research, it's February 26th, and then it's quite obviously is the case from, I think it's from Austria. People are returning from Austria and Italy from their skiing holidays, and then I think Norway is, I think in March you have the lockdown, right?
Yeah, I think they started lockdown on March the 13th, I think, if I remember correctly.
So, is around like how long was it?
Parts of it are still going on in a way.
Okay.
But on March the 13th, they closed down like all the schools, all the kindergartens, and told everybody who could to work from home. And especially the part about closing schools and kindergartens obviously means that a lot of people have to stay home from work, even though they were supposed to go to work because they have to look after their kids and stuff. That was probably like the biggest impact that people felt from the lockdown. And then they reopened the schools in I think in May. But it was sort of like gradual, They started with the smallest kids first, and then after a few weeks, then the older kids could come to school. So, yeah.
It's a bit weird, because usually it's older kids first, and then the young kids. I don't know. In some places it's different. Anyway, is it?
I think they did that approach because people said that smaller children don't contract the virus as easily as adults and bigger kids.
Okay.
But
I remember in some cases actually is the babies who born with the virus or very young children actually infected anyway.
Yeah.
Because I don't know, because so-called young children didn't affect it, and probably something is related to Hong Kong, because the first thing because Hong Kong's first reaction is the parents don't let the students, the pupils go back to school. So force the Hong Kong government to close the school. So I think in the first stages, they think the coronavirus didn't contract the young children. I think it's a myth. Anyway, we don't jump into that. But I think recently in Norway, something is quite interesting. Because because we all know people in Europe seems a bit loosen the rules, allowing people to go to holidays, especially in South Europe, Italy, France. And I just read the news on Sunday that is it I think it's the people have to quarantine again coming back from France and Czech Republic and also a few countries, and a flight just they are trying to beat the time like landed by 23:59, but eventually they fail like it's 00:05. Is it? I think that didn't happen the first time. Is it? According to you?
Yeah, like they have to put the deadline somewhere, you know. So they usually put it at midnight on this and this date.
Yeah.
So there was a case like a week or two ago where Spain went from being they called it green and red countries. It's kind of obvious what that means. So people who had been to Spain, they had to return by midnight on some date, and there were a few flights that just barely made it, like with like less than 10 minutes to go. And luckily they counted it from the touchdown of the plane and not after you passed the immigration or something. But there was a case like a couple of days ago when people were returning from, I think it was France.
Nice. Nice. This is a city of France, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And the plane was supposed to land at 10 past midnight.
Yeah.
And it landed exactly at midnight. But they were like 1 minute late or something. So they all still had to go into quarantine for like 10 days.
Yeah, so it's like 158 people, if I read the news correctly.
Yeah.
So that is I think that happens because in Hong Kong in early days there are similar cases, but they are going, because in Hong Kong it was this first, also there are some airplanes landed like 10 minutes, but the schedule is before midnight.
Yeah.
I think one flight is from Beijing or something, or Peking, yeah. It should be land like something like 10 to 12, right? 10 to 12. And then eventually they landed like very similar, 10 past 12. So they have to the whole plane have got, the passenger on the plane have got to quarantine. And we actually have some news footage as the same quarantine policy have been placed by on the land immigration, the land border crossing as well on the land. So actually the news camera are there to put the people are quite, if you probably you have see the news from Hong Kong, is the news media here quite obsessed about Facebook Live, so they just put a camera on the airport, on the arrival hall, because they cannot get in the restricted zone, and then also the land border with China, so they just trying to catch everyone, and even a journalist standing in the border to ask the people have just got in before the border closing and say, how do you feel? You made it, you don't need to quarantine, and ask all kinds of odd questions. Yeah, so that is something quite similar, but I think in Norway it's quite different. And one topic we keep asking with my guests are talking about is masks. But in Norway today, I'm a little bit shocked because it is still not required to wear a mask now, or people just don't wear it.
Yeah, like you can obviously wear a mask if you want to, but since the lockdown started, I think I've seen like 2 people in public who wore masks.
2 people?
I went to the hospital and the doctors, and they obviously had masks on, but outside in public, I've only ever seen 2 people, I think. With my own eyes. I mean, if you watch the news or, see pictures in the newspaper, you will see some people wearing masks, but it's not common at all. But they are talking about not requiring it, but recommending using masks nowadays. So they might come with a recommendation like soonish, within a few weeks. I think one thing that Norway, maybe the similar case in Europe is somewhere in the countryside of Bavaria, because people are already keep very away from each other. I think you remember you tell me a joke is that even people now, according to you have social distancing rules like 1 meter, right?
but there was some need, and instead it's like Norway people are actually, I think, is it because in Hong Kong we only know this is some case in Finland that people are quite scattered away. Is it actually the same thing in Norway?
Yeah, like the meme or joke I saw was that I can't wait for this 1 meter distancing to be done so that we can go back to our usual 5 meter distancing. So it's online at least the memes are usually about Finland or Sweden, where people are waiting for the bus stop, and they like 5 people and they stand like 10 meters away from each other waiting for the same bus. And that happens in Norway too, usually. I mean, not in big cities, but if there is room, you will try to stay as far away from each other as possible. So like we don't usually. I mean, we don't have that culture from France and Italy where you kiss on the cheek when you meet and stuff. We normally shake hands or hug, but obviously you don't do that anymore nowadays.
Now, yeah, I think it's not just Sweden, and also Finland. People are quite. They used to be quite get scattered away.
Yeah.
So I think
we have a pretty big landmass and relatively few people. I mean, there are 5 million people in Norway.
Yeah.
How many are there in Hong Kong?
7.
Yeah. And your area is just a little bit tinier than ours. So
yeah, I think it's just. I think Hong Kong size is just like a little bit around just Oslo. Yeah, the city limit. Yeah. So also one thing is quite I think quite interesting to talk about is the actually because this is in the Hong Kong sense, it will be a horrifying idea. The way you're trying to get away from the virus is actually going to work because you have so many spaces in the countryside.
Yeah.
So how is that? Because how is the experience?
Like for me, I don't live near any big natural there aren't any big parks and stuff, but there's a forest nearby, and once the first lockdown started, I saw like 10 times as many people passing my house going to the forest than I would normally see. So people were like, since people had to stay home from work, they had to do something, and people were, just going to the forest. But still, keeping a distance is no problem at all, because there's, if you meet someone, you just walk in a circle around them, basically. So, yeah.
So how many people I'm just curious, how many people usually just go past through your home? Usually, a day. Do you have a stat? Because you say 10 times. I don't know, means like 20 people versus 2 or 200 people versus 20.
Yeah, no, like usually during the daytime, I would say like maybe 1 or 2 people pass by my house going towards the forest. And during the lockdown, it was like, 10, 15, 20 people.
So that kind of.
Yeah.
But still, it's because why I'm asking this question, because in Hong Kong is basically more people than Norway stuck in the town. Yeah. So also I don't know why they also Hong Kong is like 80% is actually uninhabitable. It's actually mountain range and stuff. Mm-hmm. Usually mountain range. So people actually, when the first week comes, actually people also went to this kind of country park to walk. But sadly, because we are talking about the East parks are usually, already like 100, 200 or thousands of people visiting, and eventually it turned up 10 times. So it's another. Luckily, from what we review the situation now, is not as bad as we think, because like 20,000 or 30,000 going to the park, so although the park is so huge or so wilderness, but actually it's not that close because people are only trapped in a trail, because it's not a forest, it's a mountain trail. So you're actually 20,000 people are actually stuck on the same trail. So it's actually another kind of people. They actually fail to maintain social distancing. So it's a horrible idea for Hong Kong people saying that, oh, you still go to the mountains or still go to the forest when the pandemic is coming, because Hong Kong sense is people are scrambling over there, but that's not the case in Norway or some other similar case I heard from Bavaria, because they're so scattered. People are just there to scatter away.
Yeah.
So Norway, I think, is another thing. Is like, it's actually, I'm not saying that it's not serious, but it's not as serious as some other countries like UK or Germany. How do you think in general? How do you think when you watch this kind of news of other countries? How do you feel in Norway? You feel safe or feeling? How do you feel?
I feel pretty safe. And people in Norway have a very high trust in the government, so they will, the government recommends to stay at home, work from home, or wear a mask, not wear a mask. People will generally follow what they say, so it's kind of easy to make everyone be on the same page, so to say. I mean, there are still some people who disagree, but the vast majority is still, follow the rules. So that makes it a bit easier.
How far they go to disagree? Because in Germany you will see protests, in France you will see brawls, and in UK it's the people are just go to the park, don't care whatever it happens, to sunbathing. So how far they go?
I don't know really, because it hasn't, the measures that have been in place so far haven't been that intrusive, except for the staying at home part. So, but there are some people who say that, oh, if we have to wear masks, we'll protest, but they're like a tiny minority.
Okay.
Usually the conspiracy quacks, the people who believe that 5G causes cancer or corona or whatever bullshit they believe, So
in Germany they say it's the coronavirus is developed by Bill Gates.
Exactly.
So that kind of stuff is happening, and they will think that. So back to something about yourself. What is the biggest change of this pandemic for you? The pandemic bring to you, like in your life and in your situation. What is the biggest change?
For me personally, it's the kids having to stay home. I have 3 kids. One is 2, one is 7, and one is 13. And our apartment isn't that big, so those 3 plus me and my wife in a very small space for weeks and weeks on end is that's exhausting. And you can't really go out and do anything fun with them except for going outside in the garden or something. So that has been the most difficult part for me personally.
How about work? Because you are now, everyone is working from home, or just part of it?
Nowadays, more and more people are returning to work, but they're still recommending that if you have a job that you can do from home, you should do it from home.
Right.
So, but for me, I normally work at home 3 days a week, and then I go to Oslo 2 days a week.
Right.
And I haven't been in Oslo since March, but I'm going back there now on Friday, so we'll see how it goes.
Right. So on the other hand, I'm not sure how is Norway, because in many countries, or in the first weeks, or in the middle or somewhere, every time like cases spike up, and there are people are doing crazy, go to supermarket to or grocery to grab stuff, or in German language you will probably use the term hamstering.
Yeah.
About the
same
food.
word in Norwegian.
Yeah, so I already do research on it, so I know how to say it. Yeah, hamstring stuff. So how is it in Norway? Is it more, because you seems quite trust the government or the so-called the system? So how is that?
like in the very beginning, in the start of lockdowns, people were doing the same stuff as everywhere, basically.
Yeah.
Buying toilet paper and canned food. So in like the first week after lockdown, the stores were pretty empty of those things, but then it quickly returned to normal after people realized that, okay, we will still be able to, buy groceries even though this is happening. So but nowadays, since they started, discussing that masks might be recommended or required, the price of masks have surged like 700%, I think. They used to be 100 Norwegian kroners, and now they're almost 700 kroners.
700 kroners
for one pack of 50.
150, 700. Okay, that's quite a spike because Norwegian krona is almost Hong Kong dollar, almost 1 to 1. Not exactly, but
according to Google here, 100 Norwegian kroner is 86 Hong Kong dollars. So
okay,
times that by 7, and you have the current price for a pack of masks.
Yeah, so 700 kronas is quite crazy, actually, even in Hong Kong says now.
Yeah.
Because I think Hong Kong probably the most expensive mask you get, or it is actually very first in the early times when the supply chain from China is completely broke down. So at that time it's around 500 Hong Kong dollars. So it's probably just 600. So I think that is quite serious spike in the price. Right. So I think so we have covered quite a lot from these from the interesting topics in Norway. So so I think how about is that very significant change in Norway that you never imagined before, that Norway people would do this before the pandemic? Do you find anything on that?
Not really. I mean, we have our national day is the Constitution Day on 17th of May. And we usually go out in the streets and have, children's parades and stuff like that.
Okay.
And none of that happened this year. And that was probably the, biggest symbol of there being a pandemic that I can think of.
Right.
So.
I think you probably didn't celebrate your Constitutional Day only at the time the Second World War, I think. Isn't it?
Yeah. The Germans, because Norway was occupied by the Germans during the Second World War. So obviously they couldn't celebrate it then.
So I think I still
remember just before the 17th of May in 1945, and the celebrations then were, off the roof.
You're talking about the National Day. I just remember a very peculiar dance by your government official, your cabinet minister. Actually did a dance this year, as I remember. Is it this year or last year?
I couldn't hear you properly.
I just remember that during the National Day, I think it's this year, they are doing a weird dance by the cabinet minister. Yeah.
They actually do those quite often, because there's like a children's show that are doing some, they make a new song and dance every year, and they get children from all over the country to join in, and I think that's what the government joined in as well. Yeah,
because I remember it's like, I think in Netherlands they have the similar thing in a Queen's Day before, now it's the King's Day. That is the National Day, and they every year have the friends in Netherlands will always joke about it because they have every year they have a theme song, very ridiculous. They will say very ridiculous. So it's same thing in Norway, right?
Yeah, basically.
Yeah.
So this is mostly aimed at kids, so most grown-ups wouldn't hear or know the song.
In Netherlands, the case is they also pointed out that they use grown-up singer to sing it, and actually they play it everywhere. So it's not just in Netherlands. It's not just for kids, as I remember. Right. So that is the case. So thank you for you to having you today. Yeah.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So thank you for you to talk with us, and I think it's just we cover a lot now. So stay safe.
You too.
歡迎大家係翻到嚟㗎，我哋又到呢個旁白嘅時候。如果你仲喺度嘅情況之下咧，係非常之犀利㗎嚇，你可以聽到咁耐。咁頭先佢講咗啲咩啊？我隱約好似聽到佢話挪威啲人唔係好戴口罩喎。
咁其實同佢哋本身個習慣有關係，因為好簡單一樣嘢，其實一個好簡單嘅 point 就係佢哋得500萬人，但係挪威係一個咁長嘅國家。咁你咪明？咁所以你咪知道個人口分佈其實咪好密咯。佢哋真係行山唔驚喎，我哋行山就話會驚，行山群組佢哋行山幾個鐘都唔見一個人嘅喎，可以係啊。咁甚至可以係即係如果有睇膠事，你知道係可以喺無端端喺個樹入邊提供一個野戰嘅 condom box 噶嘛，係啊。呢個係挪威嚟噶嘛 ，OK。
挪威係咪大過香港？我諗有冇100倍啊？即係佢一定
識計
到噶嘛。
黐人線，
好強嘢嚟噶嘛，係咪？
好長啊，係啊，好長一條咯 ，OK。咁所以佢哋其中一個笑話就係呢個疫症幾時完啊？我哋唔想 keep 1米社交距離，我哋要 keep 5米。係啦，咁佢哋咁咪嚟嘅呢個係，咁所以就仲有咯。佢其實而家英國都可能就快發生㗎啦，我哋見到或者已經發生咗啊，就係法國就有 ban 呢一個法國話要翻去又要隔離咁。挪威就試過一架機爭10分鐘就要全機隔離，咁係咪英國又會見到啲咁膠嘅嘢咯
？OK，
係啊，咁所以呢一個就係個可能英國係 Eurostar 咧，你知啦，成日都 delay 㗎啦嚇，即係成日喺隔斷落喺度排長龍咁，呢啲就會大家去到歐洲仲有美好嘅記憶就應該會知嘅，係啊。
OK，仲有冇嘢啊？
冇啊，下一集應該同你哋講翻廣東話㗎啦。不過我唔知有冇變。
係啊，唔使我出場。
好難㗎喎，其實你要知道呢個機會越來越少喎，應該係啊。
OK，好，
就咁啦。
下個星期再見啦，好，再見。